Right, so welcome to round nine of the D1a. Obviously, as we've all noticed, is that the games have stepped up quite a few levels as we're getting in towards playoffs. And there's a lot of good refereeing, but I've also noticed that some of it, I feel that the referees are not putting 100% into it. If you look at some of the games, you can see that the referees are working at 100%, like from the kickoff all the way through for the full 80 minutes. And it's a real privilege to be refereeing this competition. And what we do want to see is we want to see referees that put in 100% all the way from beginning to end. And the ones that perform are the ones that will be rewarded in the playoffs as well. But and I've said this a couple of times. I sent out a couple of emails in between the other D1a emails, is that you're only as good as your last game, and you got to referee every game like it's a test match. So really make sure that when you go out there that you look at the principles of the game, and we give the game, every game, the respect that it deserves. So let's just carry on working as a group and put everything into it to make this competition successful all the way through to the final.
No, I'm over it.
And if you can mute yourself when you're not presenting, that'll be great. And unmute yourself if you want to ask questions to us in the group here. Anyway, we're going to get going with first game is BYU and Central Washington. Also see that the team coaches are on here. Team coaches, please feel free to ask questions as well. Todd, I did put 3 of your clips into the folder, so we'll also look at them after we've looked at the clips that Jenny and Mark put in. So over to you, Jenny and Mark.
Cool, thanks, Richard. So went out to BYU to ref this match, top of the table clash with 2 very skilled, well-coached teams. It was very exciting, super intense. The teams were awesome to work with. Was proud. So my goals going into it was build relationships. I hadn't seen these 2 teams before, so really work with the captains at the get-go, and they were both fantastic to work with. Did an awesome job. Second goal was to be really alert in the 22 and be aware of those defensive destructives. And then the third goal was, high standards and being really discerning with advantage. And this was a bar burner. It was down to the wire and a really competitive, well-played match.
Great. Mark?
Yeah, it was an exciting match to watch. It was an honor to have Coach Jenny on it. Lots of takeaways from it. A couple things are, missed opportunities. Don't want them to come bite you in the rear end, so just kind of be accurate. And I think one thing is, like, whether you're going to the matches, if you have touch judges or ARs, make sure you kind of follow up with the coaches beforehand and have a good protocol of what you're looking for from those ARs. I sent Richard a PowerPoint that maybe he can disseminate, that if you do have ARs in these matches, you can kind of give them a breakdown of what you're looking for pre-match. So on match day, you guys are all aligned on the same team.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. We did try to do that. They just didn't have the contact information for those ARs. I did reach out the week before, but it was just a misconnection. So,
yeah, and I think that all of the referees, when you get to a game, you've got 2 pre-matches. Like, you've got your one for your TJ and you got your one for your AR. So even if you arrive at the field, you need to know whether they've been assigned by the union or not. And if you're going to have them as ARs, you need to give them the full AR briefing. We've been through this in the fall. We've actually got the AR videos available, and to make sure what the duties are. Because if they're TJ, they're only going to be doing touch and tell you if the ball's kicked over or not, right? But even when you only have people as touch judges supporting you, it's always a good thing to introduce yourself, know their names, and go and make sure that they're working with you. That they're just not some random person. And if the ARs, obviously their duties are much more extended. So just make sure that we know exactly what you want and what you need from them. The worst thing for an AR that's been assigned is that the referee ignores them, right? Because you have to make sure that they're there to support you and that they work with you throughout the whole game. So even when you go to line out in the front, you go like, hey, whatever the name is, how are you doing? Everything okay? What's it looking like? Get some feedback from them, make them feel like they're part of the team, because, when you need them to support you, they'll be there. Cool. Let's go on with the clips. Where should we start?
How about the challenge in the air? All right, in real time, so I'll just set this up. In real time, I saw air contest, and I said as much. I saw both players go up into the air, and I saw them both touch the ball. The ball flew back off of red. Upon review, I had a different opinion, and the group can let me know what they think.
Does anyone who want to talk about this one?
I'll be the brave soul. Yeah, so Jenny, you've said both of them have gone up for the ball, and they have. I just don't think the red player is in a credible position to catch the ball, whereas the blue player gets two hands on it. Then he lands dangerously. I don't think he's like on his head or anything, but the onus is on that red player, I think. He's chosen to go up for the ball. Well, not even go up. I could say obviously we've got the replay, which makes it easier, but I think I think the red player is at fault here.
Mm.
I just don't see him as a credible ball catcher in that scenario. That he could have actually caught that ball. The fact that he started to jump up, I think, is kind of irrelevant. That's my kind of 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. Just the other thing I just want to talk to referees about here is that what we do from the kickoff in all situations is, instead of running to where they're going to catch the ball at a kickoff, you would always sprint straight, right? So you can sprint straight this way, and then you move in from over here, instead of just running over here, running towards, because you've got all these bodies in your way always, right? So if you're sprinting straight forward, you get clear of these players immediately, and you're out here, right? So it gives you a completely different view of play. So when that happens, you can come in from this side, and you just see it differently than over here. When actually when it happens, there's so many players in the way there, at that point, right? It's just a lot more difficult to see. So is everyone happy with that? That it was not a fair challenge. Red was late. Player landed dangerously. Minimum yellow card. Yeah. Yep. Is that fair? Great.
Yeah, and then Mark and I got into a philosophical discussion about if that had been sanctioned, would the high tackles from blue the several high tackles from blue have happened? And there is no right or wrong. Like, nobody can predict what it is, but it's just interesting to think about. Could that have influenced their discipline in the match?
Yeah, on most occasions it does. Yeah, it does. When those situations are controlled, it's, when they happen, or early in the game as well. I mean, I know this is not that early in the game, but still, the situations do make everybody calm down and take note when you firm and make those decisions.
Yeah, so that positioning takeaway is going to be the main thing for me, especially being the shortest person on the field.
Yeah, I mean, for all referees, it's just straight out and then move in. So it's always the best way to do, because you've got to get clear of those players running. There's whole players running in line with you. And you're trying to beat them. Most of the time, they're not full sprinting, so you can normally beat them. Yeah. Next one,
Richard. That's just as true for up and unders as it is for kickoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the same reason.
Yeah, and also when there's a breakaway, when there's a breakaway, you always have to just run straight towards the goal line. And what you want to do is you want to get the best angle on the ball carrier. Like, you never want to be running behind the ball carrier when there's a breakaway, because you're running behind them, they could drop the ball and catch it again. You wouldn't even see it, right? So you got to make sure that you get that angle. So you got to can't run towards the ball. You just got to run towards the goal line. Yes, Tig. Thank you.
Yep, and then we'll go into this one, the tackle not release timing call.
Okay, do you want to play or do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so I'll just say something quick. So I called the not releasing, but if I had called it like half a second earlier, it would have been a lot cleaner because the ball did come out, or have a more patience to let that play through, because the jackler did get cleaned out and it was a well-timed clean out. So those were two better options. Because now the ball is out. BYU is there to move it away, and then it looks like you're stopping momentum. So that's a timing thing. I think I would have preferred to breathe for a second longer and let that play out.
It's a tough one because he does actually lift the ball there.
Yeah, that is true. So the timing of the whistle could be improved.
Yeah, I think you got that right, Jenny. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, man, that's tough. And then when Richard slowed it down, you can actually see he tackles him to the ground, releases him clearly, and then goes for the ball. So I think you nailed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a quick whistle, but I think you got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the timing, so it doesn't look as stop-start and,
Yeah.
And then we did talk about, is the tackler, does the tackler have an effect because they are in the tackle area? And because of that lurch forward by blue, to me, there was enough separation to say that the tackler didn't have an effect there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agreed. Again, just another thing here is running lines again, right? So just if you were further back here and came in at a 45-degree angle, it gives a little bit more credibility in the decision.
This is the turnover line out though, right? That's why you're on that side. Central Washington's line out.
I wouldn't know.
Don't.
That doesn't let us go back.
Yeah. Sorry. And then Coach Todd has a few clips that I did see, so we can go into
Are these the same ones that I had, right?
Yeah, they're the ones that you moved in from the
Okay.
group 8 folder.
Okay. Yeah, but he's actually put his own ones in here. So
Oh, okay, great. Okay. Let's do
let's start here with we'll
Okay,
do
yeah,
the two breakdown calls.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so this is the very end of the game, and okay. So we'll let y'all watch it, and then I'll talk you through my thought process here. So I missed the forward pass by 10 red, and then my thought process of the breakdown was that blue was in a more dominant position, and the reason, so Coach Todd asked a question about, well, is the blue tackler impeding the rucker? And for me, no, because the red rucker didn't come through the gate. So that player on the ground, I felt didn't have a material effect because the actions of red were not coming through the gate. And so blue was coming forward, had the momentum, had the turnover, and that's what I saw, and that's what I was feeling in the moment. So blue, clear lift.
So what was the sanction? Nothing?
No, I just like Blues turned it over, and then they kick it out to end the game.
Gotcha.
So what at the scrum, I was thinking, okay, something. If I'm going to call something, it obviously has to be clear and obvious. And to me, blue had the dominant position, and there was nothing clear and obvious for me to blow my whistle in that moment because of the ruck entry, and then also the missed forward pass.
Yeah, that's a lot of things to be thinking about in one breakdown. But I think obviously it would have been great if the forward pass was called first, right? And I think that, without the forward pass being called, you would have to think that the tackler would be the first one that would be called, right? Because you wonder if the tackler wasn't there, the tackler had moved away quicker instead of standing up in here, It's a lot of things that we're discussing here. Instead of the tackler needs to roll without impacting ball delivery. So I think the easiest thing would have been to have got the forward pass call, right?
Yeah.
I think, again, it's just running lines, right? In line with the ball, running lines in line with the ball would have been the easier way to make that call. Any other thoughts on the breakdown there, Miles?
So yeah, I didn't actually pick up on that red player coming with the side entry, but you did right, because the blue player on the ground there slowing the ball down, no question. Yeah. But then again, you've got the red player coming in from the side, so I'm kind of happy with the outcome of it actually. I would have probably been personally, I probably would have penalised blue there for just slowing the ball down, but I think you're fine playing away based on what you said about the entry of that rucker. So yeah, it's a tough one though. It's a lot going on. Thank God it was in the middle of the field to end the game. It wasn't in front of the sticks or something, right?
If it's the first call of the game, what are you going to call?
Oh yeah, you call tackler, but this is yeah. But that was my thought process with everything that was happening here.
Yeah. I just think moving forward, let's just look at what's the simple call going to be in all of these situations. What's a clear and obvious call? I don't think in a clear and obvious call, like if you're going to make this call first call of the game, you're going to call blue for not rolling, then it's got to be the last call of the game too, right? It just makes it a lot simpler that way, because then everyone's used to the pictures that they're seeing throughout the game. I think would make it much clearer.
He's already slowed the ball down even before that red player comes in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's already over.
before this player got his hands on the ball, the Red never had opportunity to even pop the ball back or roll it back or put rates it or anything, right?
Sure.
Because this player is not rolling, they're standing up. So
Just
Mind
one
if I-
other consideration, sorry,
Mhm.
this is Amelia, would
Hey,
be
Amelia.
if you haven't called that all game, don't call it as the last play of the game just because technically
Absolutely.
it's correct.
but,
Absolutely. Please, absolutely. What Amelia said is 200% correct, right?
Mhm.
it was
If you haven't-
called about the 60th minute though against
Yeah.
us. So
Yeah,
that was
absolutely. Yeah.
that's the only reason I put it in there, because it was
Yep.
relatively identical to Red. Us, we didn't roll away and we got pinged from a dominant tackle situation like that. So that's the only reason I was wondering about it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's fair. Blue 17 inside or feet. Ball inside.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
a bit of a it's a bit of a messy situation here. So what happens is red goes to ground. I see blue hands on pushing the ball forward, and then they get cleaned out, and then the blue 17 comes in. The ruck is over for me, and that's why. So Coach Todd said, "Is this off feet?" And to me, the ball, there's no bodies over the ball, so that player, blue 17, was just going after the scrum half, and it was so again clear and obvious. Like I was unclear, so this is a non-decision by me, unclear on whether that player was onside or not. So I saw that the knock on by the blue jackler, so I was like, okay, this is a high stress situation here. We're very close to the goal line. I'm just gonna calm it down, and I'm gonna go back to this knock on that I've seen and give Central Washington a nice platform here, because BYU may or may not have been offside. I was not 100% sure. So that was a mitigating factor for me. And so I was like, okay, let's calm it down. Let's set a platform and let's go from there. So the outcome here was the scrum to red.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that fair for everybody? Cool.
Doesn't blue 17 kill advantage? Like that's my thing. Like it's like there's space obviously on this left edge, and it's good clean out, quick ball, and then blue 17 just kills it.
That was because I thought that maybe he came from an onside position. So that was the uncertainty for me. That was the mitigating factor, that I was unsure if he was coming from an onside position or not. And so I was like, okay, I'm not 100% sure that was actually clean or if it was illegal. So I went back to that knock on that I saw, and I was like, okay, we're not going to just guess, because I wasn't 100% sure. So
where's this blue 17? Is he the one coming up to tackle the guy who's going to catch the ball?
Yeah.
No, blue 17 is coming in off of the edge after
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I'd be wondering about blue 22 standing up and
Play,
interfering with the 9.
Yeah. Fair. So there's a lot happening in this area. I was focused on blue 17, or whether they came from an onside position or not, and it created a mess. And so, okay, let's just calm down and go back to the knock on and just reset things. So that was my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, at the point where you're looking here, there's no bodies over the ball. Blue 17, you can't really say that he's offside, right? So blue 17 goes and plays the scrum off first, put his hands on the ball, and the ball's out. So that's what Jenny was saying. So even though there was a knock on, there was no that blue player didn't take advantage away, because they didn't come from an offside position. So they went back. She went back and gave the scrum, which I think is fair at that point. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I just extended this clip a little bit longer so we can just see where the clip you put inside. I just made it longer.
Right.
Yeah. So, Jenny, did you want to talk about this beforehand, or should we just play through it?
Yeah, I want to point out that the piece in question is not the flip pass. It is the knock on before grounding. And it is literally impossible to see in this video because the ball is behind the red player's body. And so those are the two things. So go ahead and watch it. So I wore the try, and then the AR comes running over to me, and he's like, no, I've seen a clear knock on before grounding. And I asked him a couple different ways. Are you sure? Clear separation? Are you 100% sure? He's like, yes, he knocked it on before grounding. Okay, was it in goal or was it in the field of play? You're not talking about the flip pass, right? Because that was fine. No, I'm talking about before the grounding.
Over here.
Yes. And so I award the try, and if I could do this again, I would just blow time off, not award the try, and talk to the AARs about it so that everyone didn't have a roller coaster of emotion.
Jenny, did you suspect that there might have been a knock on?
There was a twinge that maybe it wasn't as clean as it needed to be. And I should have listened to my gut and just stopped time and talked to my team.
Blue 10 definitely thinks it's a knock on.
Yeah, well, so does the play over here. I'm just having a look just to see people's reactions.
So that was getting caught up in the excitement, wanting to, make an exciting moment. But I, own that position or own the process. And I wish I would have slowed down and just talked to the team and made sure we came to the right outcome.
Yeah.
I like you had the courage to make the call live, though. Seriously, I mean, I think as referees sometimes go to a touchy as a cop out, but you saw it live and you blew the try. I think that's good. Up until the point where the AR interjected, obviously, but it's impossible to see from this camera. I think if there was a knock.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I mean, what we want to do as referees is you want to try and absorb as much information as quickly as you can, right? And unfortunately, players give you so much information if you just look at them and you take in information as you can. And I think that the biggest telltale sign here is the person who actually was apparently scored. Because the first reaction of the player who actually scored was they got up and looked around to see what was going on before celebrating. If you want to look at it again, which is pretty interesting. So if you look at the player who goes over and scores, they get up, they're like, what? They're like, oh, great. Interesting. So the AR called a knock on for the grounding, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
which we'll never know.
Yeah. And I wanted to get the call right. And so I said, no try, knock on, because he was 100% sure. And that's a good lesson in process.
Yeah. Difficult to tell. We'll never know with the video. Again, and we go back to the beginning about, like, you know, what's your pre-match briefing with your ARs and what do you expect from them? And I know that, you know, everyone goes like, oh, you know, when we get to law 614, it says it can only alter decision for touch and goal, or for foul play. However, number 13 is quite different, right? It says, and the referee may request assistance related to other aspects of the referee's duty. So I think in all fairness, what we want to do as referees, we want to make decisions that are fair on the field, you know, and sometimes, you know, if you build that relationship with that AR, you have a pretty good idea. And when you understand how people communicate, and obviously in those situations, if the AR is not that experienced, you need to make sure that they calm down, and you need to ask them the correct question, you know, so that you get through the process, so that the questions that you ask them and the language that you use is very accurate, so that you can then communicate within the framework that you've already established for yourself as a referee managing ARs, right? So when you communicate that to the teams, that it's very clear. And I think, you know, we went through a lot of that in the fall. Maybe we need to go through every fall and every spring to make sure that all the referees are very clear on this. But it's a huge part of your game that the ARs, they're part of your team, you know, and to make sure that we get that communication correct. But we want to make the correct decision, so we will use the ARs to get there. It's just you know, the process has got to be, the referee's got to be in charge. The referee's got to ask the right questions, and the referee's got to assess the situation from that. Todd, did you have any other questions about this?
No, to be honest, I thought the AR overruled on the pass, the offload.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that was what, but if, you know, again, I can't see on that angle either, and it does look very plausible that we did knock it on. So yeah, I got it. Yeah, my wires were completely crossed. So
yeah. I mean, like I didn't see that either from the clip. You know, I don't think anyone did. So it was good to get that communication on it. But make sure that everyone's prepared to work with your ARs before the game and give them the proper briefing beforehand. Right. So I actually just repeated some of those clips, and then Miles, you got a clip here, a couple of clips.
Yeah, I clipped a couple from Amelia's game.
Oh, this is for Amelia. Okay, well, let's go. Let's move across to the other game. But I think that the takeaway there is, like, obviously with foul play, accuracy in foul play, get it right. And then, you know, when it comes to the breakdown, you got to make the same call all the way through. And as Amelia said, if you don't call something early in the game, don't call it late in the game. We've talked about this before, and it's especially at like the breakdown and the scrum. In those situations, you're going to get the breakdown, the scrum, where you might think you're managing something, and then suddenly you've managed it for so long that you make the call, and it affects the outcome of the game. So consistency, and always think about, and again, like, the more rugby we watch, the more we understand the game, and the more we can make decisions that are clear and obvious. And we as referees, you've got to tell the story. And the story we want to tell is that most people, players, coaches, and spectators can follow the story, you know, of how you're refereeing the game, and that the decisions are very clear. You know, of course, every now and then you're going to make decisions that might be a bit technical for everyone to understand, but on most occasions, the decision should be clear. You set your standards and you maintain them throughout the game. Any last comments, Jenny or Mark or Todd? Good.
Nothing for me. I thought, the teams were fantastic, and a lot of things learned.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, nothing for me, Jenny. Good job, and hopefully, you know, we've got a lot of learning points, and you're at least 1% better.
Excellent. Thank you. Justin and Amanda. Hello.
Hello. My first comment is this is so wrong that I have to follow up Jenny. That's a tough person to have to follow up and have a conversation afterwards. So yeah. So anywho, I did Arkansas State versus Davenport. Don't know where to start. Had fun. It's probably the most for me, probably the most high profile game I've gotten to do so far in my referee career, as far as like D1a, and I was very very excited to do it, and happy that I did it. My goals going to this game after watching both teams' last few games is recognizing their playing style. Both of them want to play in an expansive game. And so having space and clear offside lines were going to be important. I wanted to focus on making sure teams have quick ball, and so they can run downhill. So that was my biggest focus, and it kind of shows in the type of penalties and things I gave. Overall with the match, like I said, it was very enjoyable. I'm content with my overall performance. But me and Amanda talked about some things that can definitely help improve getting the penalty count down, and really it's a simple fix, and it's all about just being in the right position, being in a better position. I won't necessarily the right or wrong position, but being in a better position. So yeah.
The what were the thoughts, Justin or Amanda, about bringing the penalty count down?
We had a pretty interesting conversation today, although it was a little bit short, but there's a lot to be said as a referee going into a game where this is the biggest game I've done to date, and how much pressure does that apply? And then when you go out onto the pitch, how do you behave, because you're trying to control too many things at once, and you have less likelihood of playing through things that might turn out okay if you just lay off the whistle. And we had a conversation also about talking yourself into a penalty. So if you come up to something and you're saying release instead of just chilling out and watching to see what happens, you might talk yourself into having to call a penalty. I think that's about it. So there's definitely a couple that we tagged and looked at that we think we could have just left the whistle in the pocket. Yeah.
I also think that, because I just noticed the one comment in there about, trying to play more advantage to make the game flow. On most occasions, the game flows by setting standards that the players can play with them, right? And then that's how the flow happens, rather than trying to play more advantage and trying to overmanage the breakdown. I think that's what Amanda was talking about. Like, too much talking doesn't help, and I think just less is more, and blowing the penalties and just sticking to them early in the game sets a clearer standard than playing more advantage or talking more and trying to manage the players more, especially when these games are happening at quite a high speed. So before you can say release, something else has happened, right?
Yep. You actually used some of the words I used in my comments on my clip, so spot on.
Yeah. Also, Justin did the work to put the audio with his video.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's
highly recommend having your audio with you, having your voice recorded in your pocket.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, you can we got them in order, so we start from number one. I hate that this is the first clip. The first thing you said was talking about we look like we don't want to be there and we don't want to work hard, and so the first clip is a work rate clip, and so don't think I wasn't working to be there. So in this first clip, we're like I said, one of the biggest goals I had was to create space for both sides, which for the most part I felt like I achieved that, but in doing that, and I called, I think, 5 or 6 offside penalties. And after talking to Amanda and after going back and looking at film, I could have got rid of 4 to 5 of those offside penalties just by focusing, like, stop worrying about the breakdown as much, stop over managing the breakdown, and worrying about creating that space for the team and where they want to go. And so This is an example in this clip. I kind of stay on the weak side instead of hitting that saddle and working my way around.
Yeah. I'm just going to leave the sound on so we can hear you talking.
Yeah.
Step. Offsides advantage. No hands white.
Yeah.
So prime example in this clip, and granted, Arkansas got me a few times because they didn't attack to the edges all the time. They did what I call retros, but they did a lot of flipping back and forth. So at times I found myself trying to guess what they were going to do next. But when we have pictures like this one, a 9 has his body completely open to one side. The breakdown is kind of how we need it anyway. He's already moving his hands. Me saying one word and just getting to the next job gives me time to push that white back that half of that one more step that I wanted, gets rid of that offsides call, because everything else becomes fine. And now we get to play even more free-flowing rugby. We could have had an easy turnover and even more ball and play time.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things too that's quite a good habit to get into is that you only ever point with one arm. So if you're going to point the arm left, you look left. So wherever your hand goes, you're looking, right? So you go, you look across the field, right? So even when you're on the other side of the field, instead of you looks like you're so engaged with just the players in front of you, if you had your arm out to the right, like all the players on the right-hand side might have seen you and just taken a step back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like a big signal with your arm up and go push them back. Surprisingly, players watch you.
they do. The players are very respectful and very responsive.
Absolutely.
So
that's great. Yeah, if anybody wants to go and listen to the communication, it's great. You know, there's been a couple of games now where the referee's voice is on. If you want to go and watch some of this game, it's great. It's great to have it on.
This one, I didn't know if I get in trouble. I was going to name it STFU, but in this case, it means shut the freak up, which is one of the big things that me and Amanda talk about. Just less management. And so this is just a clip of where I'm telling something 3 times, and if something would have happened, like Amanda said, it would have backed myself into a corner of a penalty. Sometimes just less is more, which I think is the comment I make on this clip. Less is more, and that's kind of just wait to see what happens a few more seconds.
Mark Nelson, do you want to say something about that comment? About what the ref was saying on the field?
Yeah, I used to run around there screaming no the whole time, but I learned a very important lesson one day from Mike Cobb, and it is just stop talking. It's so much more freeing if you can not talk. Then you can concentrate on getting on with the game and not have to worrying about what you're saying and what they're not doing, and you trying to manage it. Just set standards, don't speak. Yeah. And I challenge you to not talk for a minute in this game.
Yeah, this is Peter. One other thing to sort of add to that is if you're going to say something, say it once.
Yeah.
If you say it more than once, then they're learning that they don't have to listen to you until you've said it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about this clip is the ball is actually available while he's yelling no white. So
just always remember that when whatever communication you do, it's like interface design, right? You got to tell people what you want them to do.
That's what I do for a living, Richard.
Yeah. So if you take everything away and you only have a button, what is the button going to say? Click here? No, never. Right. So if you say no, it doesn't mean anything. You know, what do you put on your button to point people to click yes?
Yeah, and Justin, it works the other way too. Like I'm an over communicator too, and I have to tell myself to shut up. But if I'm on the red team here and you're saying white, no hands, whatever 3 times, I'm going to be like, what the hell? Like you told them 3 times, you're not going to penalize them. You kind of lose credibility.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
100% agree.
that's great.
So interesting. We have another contact in the air. I think this has been like 3 weeks straight. We've had some type of contact in the air. So I just wanted opinions on this. So you could really just play the. So yeah. So White. So obviously Red is kicking off. Red is in a critical position, and White kind of jumps on him. I see Red gets ball. I kind of just play on, but I'm curious. Should I be penalizing that immediately? Should I be yellow carding that? It wasn't enough, and I kind of went on player reactions here. Nobody kind of cared. I think White was like, we're getting away with it. Red is like, we got the ball, so let's just play. But yeah, I'm curious on opinions here.
Amanda?
Yeah, we're looking at White 7 there, and he just kind of slams into the red player. So I could see a penalty, and I could also just see advantage in seeing what happens since Red retains the ball. Other thoughts?
I think you got to do something about it, whether it's, advantage or immediate penalty, or at least you got to talk to that player at the next stoppage, because otherwise you're opening the door for same kind of thing all day.
Yeah. I mean, either of those would be great. I mean, it was just silly play by the player, It would have looked a lot worse if the White player actually flipped over and landed on his head or something, right?
Yeah.
Because then you got to
also in the last clip that we had of Arkansas State and the other whole contact in the air conversation we had like 2 weeks ago. So 5 is always seems to be there.
The same player.
Yeah,
Justin, did your AR say anything?
I had touch judges. I had no ARs.
I saw a flag go up for foul play.
No, he uses flag for marking their offside.
They were very exuberant flag wavers in this game. If you get a chance to watch it, it's very amusing.
I don't know I was like, what are they doing now? I just saw flags going everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, so I did not have ARs this game. It would have been great to have some ARs on some of these, but I did not. Okay, so another opinion piece. This is a law one. This is one that Amanda and I came to a semi-consensus, but we have law experts in here and wanted to get your take on this. So put this in context before playing it, because you're not going to really see it that well because of the camera angle. So the game is reached full time, and it's red line out about 7 meters away from the goal line. The line out throw is straight, and we form a maul straight off the line out. The ball is transferred to the second row of the maul and never makes it back to the 8-man as they're driving forward. The drive forward, the ball carrier, knees go to ground. I tell him something like use it or knees down or something like that. He gets back up. They go a few more meters. Knee goes down again. I say use it. He gets back up, and then they try to continue to go forward. And I blow a penalty, probably, and I don't remember what I blow the penalty for, maybe an accidental offside or something like that. But I'm curious because in this situation, we're at full time, we're 7 meters away. It's the home team's ball. They're driving forward, and I know for everybody else around, it's not a clear picture because you can't see what I see in the middle of the maul because the ball hasn't made it to the back.
Okay. Someone's shouting not straight already. Oh, throw.
Tackle down, tackle there. Let's go, gentlemen.
And some of the audio didn't make it in, and I actually tell them twice that the knee goes down, and even we can't hear the nines goes, give me the effing ball, and he doesn't play it. But from the explanation, I'm just curious about your opinions.
Does the ball carrier's knee go down?
Yeah, the ball carrier gets his knee to ground more than once.
And Justin, do you also yell out tackle there?
Yes.
One thing a maul cannot become is a tackle.
Yeah, it can't become. Yeah.
Just as a matter of law, a maul cannot become a tackle.
Yeah.
Everyone else can analyze from there and figure out what should have happened.
Yeah, and in my head, I know the reason I said, because it makes more sense to the players. But you're absolutely right. I definitely shouldn't have said tackle. I knew it makes sense to the players. Okay, you're down. You need to play the ball.
Mm-hmm. So if you watch a lot of the international referees, they will say, red took it down, play the ball. And then you give them that time for them to get the ball out. And if they don't get it out, then it's a turnover scrum, right? Because they didn't get the ball out, but they took the ball down. So the maul was ending. And if the ball doesn't come out, the maul ended unsuccessfully. That'll be a turnover scrum. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
In this case, did the tackled player get back up and rejoin the maul?
Right. So he got back up, and then the maul continued forward, which is why I was thinking the scrum for accidental offside.
No, then
same difference, same outcome, right?
You're in Richard's situation, unsuccessful end.
Yeah.
It's the same as what Amanda said. Yeah, it's the same. It's like it can't become a maul again, right? So.
Yeah. Well, no, the only way it sort of could is if he immediately releases the ball to the players on their feet. So you could sort of argue that the maul never ended. But if he keeps hold of the ball, it's got to be what Richard said.
Yeah. So I think, and it's difficult if they pop straight up again.
Right.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, especially when you look at the score and you look at the time.
Right.
So I think it would have been a turnover one way or another, whether it was a penalty or scrum. So that's the only thing. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and if you let it play through, then
they score the try.
Then White is absolutely sure that you let them cheat in order to score the try.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely turnover, but preferably a scrum, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just if we keep that, take that away, take that from the international referees, where they always go, red took it down, play the ball. You can even say to them again, get it out. You don't have to rush. Give them a little bit of time to get it out, and if they don't, when they stand up again, you've got to turn it over. You got to say, like, your legs, your knees on the ground, the maul was over, you can't get up again. So you're going to give a turnover, because the turnover scrum is a much more empathetic call than a penalty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and nobody will understand the penalty. They'll be like, what? But the scrum, everyone will understand, because it's in the framework of the maul, of where they look dominant.
What about other players in the maul, not the ball carrier, going down to a knee and then standing back up again and continuing pushing? Do they have to retire, or can they just fall and get back up?
I don't, on most occasions, we probably wouldn't see it. It might be a bit overly technical, So if somebody does lose their balance and they just get back up, I don't think we'll necessarily penalize them. Even though I'm sure between Tig and Peter, you can find a penalty there, right, or something.
No,
we like your answer, Richard.
If it's a team going forward, play it on. If it's the defenders, they're probably going to ground to create a tripper.
Yeah.
And the maul will trip over them, and then you penalize them for dropping the maul.
Yeah. You'll be lucky if your maul's going forward so fast that players are falling.
Well, but you'd be surprised at how fast defenders can fall if they need to get a maul down.
I thought we were talking about attackers. Are we talking about attackers or defenders?
I was talking about attackers.
Fine. Yeah, it's defenders.
So you're talking about attack. I mean, if defenders are going to ground, they're probably trying to take them all down. But if attackers go to ground, they probably just lost their footing, right? I don't think it'll be too much of a big deal. I mean, if defenders are going to do that and slow them all down, or the ball goes to ground, obviously it's penalizable. But if the attackers go down, I don't think we necessarily need them to leave the ball and come back and join from the hindmost point. You know, if they're still part of the mall, they can just stand up. Yeah. Very technical meeting we're having here.
Yeah, yeah.
But any last comments, Amanda or Justin?
Not really. Great game. It was fun.
Good stuff. Great clips. Great takeaways.
Oh, one thing, Justin, can you tell us what you used as the voice recorder?
I will. I went to Target. My wife made me go to Target, so I will find it and post it. I'll post it in the chat. It's right here, actually, attached to my computer. I'll write the exact thing.
Yep, I'd gotten a couple questions. Thanks.
That's great. That's great. Justin, if you can send it to me now, I'll just add it to the meeting email. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put in both.
Yeah.
Spots.
Yeah, thank you. And then we're supposed to finish at 9, but Amelia and Miles have got some clips here. So if you want to stay on, we can look at those clips. Do you have time, Amelia and Miles? I know it's very late.
Maybe we can just do one or two.
Okay.
So how about foul play kicking ball out of scrum half hands? Okay, so we'll see Life puts the ball in there in the gray, and they win the ball, and you'll see Blondie, number 9 in white, decides he doesn't want the scrum half to have the ball, and we'll see what he does. So
that's crazy.
From my perspective, I just thought that he like grabbed the scrum half and that's how the ball got lost. But if I had known that he had kicked it out, to me, that's a yellow card, and Miles agreed. And just wanted to show it to the group because it's like pretty cynical, dirty play.
Wow. Yep. That's fair enough. That's not very nice.
No. Unfortunately, where I'm standing, I couldn't see at all. I just saw, he gets near him and the ball gets lost.
That's so strange because number 9s are normally so law-abiding.
Very well behaved. There's another clip of that 9 actually, which was like a couple of minutes before he kicked the ball out of the other 9's hands. He pushed him. That's in there. We don't have to look at it though. The other one I wanted to share was the obstruction by Whitefall. And so the ball had been kicked by Life, and they're running from left to right. And what we'll see is White 12 kind of changes his running line. And that's what I'm penalizing there because he's blocking Gray 14. Yep. So it's kind of right there.
That's a great pickup.
Great pickup. Unbelievable catch.
Yeah.
So because it's so hard to see, my question was, is that too technical? Or are we happy with that type of decision?
It's a great call.
Yeah, he totally prevents him from making the tackle. It's a great call.
Yeah. We're looking at players over here, right? So I'll just go frame by frame. So he's totally pushing the player out of the way. He knows he's there. Then he puts his hand up to say, "It wasn't me, ref." It's so funny. Yeah, but he gave it away as well. He put his hand up and said it was me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That was
it's a great
helpful.
call.
Okay. That's
He's
something
not
that
even.
is difficult to pick up, but I've been seeing it more like the last couple of years, especially on teams that kick a lot. And this game had a ton of kicking.
Yeah.
So I was able to see it the one time. I'm sure it happened 5 times and I only called it once.
That's still excellent. Cool. Let me just go make a note of that. Kick ahead obstruction, but that's great. I don't think we've seen any of those kicking the ball out of the person's hand, but it's just terrible, eh?
Yeah.
The one thing I just wanted to say, if everybody watched that clip beforehand of Amelia at the scrum, notice the amount of work Amelia did as the scrum progressed and it moved and it turned and she came back and she got into position that she was right there when all the action happened, right? So even though earlier she might have been further away from the scrum, she came back to make sure that she was there to make the call, and she was in a very credible position to make that decision. So excellent, good stuff. Is that it? No more. Thanks for
Yeah,
putting
the other
clips
two
in.
are kind of whatever, not as important.
The ones okay. Yeah.
The ones Miles put in.
No,
Miles
they
put in the kicking.
one of each. It's fair. Thanks, Amelia, and thanks everyone who presented. Just I will send out a summary tomorrow. I'm not going to go through everything again because I sort of summarized a lot as we went along in the meeting, but really appreciate it. Remember, we've only got 2 rounds of pool play left. There's a lot at stake in a lot of the games. Teams are playing for home advantage for the playoffs. So, we've got to make sure that we go out there and we referee the game to the best of our ability all the way through. These are all going to be like test matches, right? So let's just go there. Yes?
If you want to go out on a good note, I put a clip of Jared's work rate on his first kickoff, and he kept it going like that the whole match.
Okay. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to show this clip, and then we'll see everybody next week and have amazing games this weekend.
He keeps this up all game.
There we go. So it's exactly the running line we talked about, right?
Yep.
It's a big sprint at kickoffs to get ahead of those players.
And he looks like that for the entire match.
That's great. Just straight down the middle and then come in, right? Perfect. Right, thanks everybody. Sorry we ran over, and I know it's late for everybody on the East Coast and even here in the Midwest, but really appreciate everyone's contribution. Thank you very much, and I'll send out the summary. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, everybody.